I'm Old Sneelock. Welcome to another episode of Old Sneelock's Workshop.
Episode 13 isn't starting out so well. Using the booster battery, it spins over a lot better, but it just doesn't fire. So I pour some gas in the carb and give it another shot. That's never a good sign.
Well, this little bugger decided that it wanted to run backwards. So it stopped turning and sheared that little key right off. The little piece that was on here fell down into the waste underneath the engine. But that is a real stopper. Then I ran into kind of an odd situation. I went down to the local garden center, Kalamazoo Garden Center, and wanted to buy one of these. But they didn't know what the heck it was. Whenever I go down to the store, I take a picture of the numbers. That way I've got them with me and I can say, see, it's a Briggs & Stratton, it's this model number, this type, this code. Give me the parts. Well, they looked at model number and type and code and it didn't show up. I don't know why Briggs doesn't do that, but you know, it's one of those things. So anyways, they went looking for this number, couldn't find anything. They said, well, it's not showing up on the print. So I said, well, I've been buying these since I was 7. They make them for every lawnmower in the world. They said, oh. I said, look up an old mower. So they looked up the blueprint for an old mower, and on the blueprint it said it's a D1, which is one of these. They charged me $4.13. $4.13 for that little zinc slug there. Just that little piece. To add insult to injury, they only had one. Well, I figure this thing backfired once, is probably going to do it again before I get it all figured out. So I wanted to get at least 3, because I didn't want to have to drive back to town every 15 minutes the rest of the afternoon. So I went down to the Sharp Shop, which was a little place down the road, and they had a whole bin full of them. $2 a piece. $2 is still an awful lot of money for a little bit of zinc, but half the price of this thing. Doesn't come with a bag, but the bag doesn't make it any better. But I do have this, so next time I go someplace, I can say I need a 222698S key flywheel. They said they don't make these anymore. All the new engines have a Woodruff key. A Woodruff key. The hell for? It's a shear pin. It's supposed to be something that tears in two. You don't need a Woodruff key to hold it in place. But some engineer thought it was an improvement. Yeah, I'm an engineer. Sometimes I'm embarrassed at what we do. Oh well, now I got to put a new shear key in this thing and get it to fire off. Darndest thing is, just this morning I was answering a comment from Tractor Man 44, and he had mentioned how he had a flywheel key that sheared off on him. Every time he tried to start the engine, the thing sheared off. Said it was a Kohler engine, really good engine, liked it, but he was having a real problem with trying to keep it running. And I said, well, it's probably just because it's not mated up right. You know, you gotta perhaps go over and put some Prussian blue on the taper and check the tapers. This is what I get for being on YouTube and telling people about how to fix things. This son of a pup just had the same problem that I talked with Tractor Man about. We have fire. Now I just got to figure out why this carb isn't putting any fuel through. I think it's that fuel solenoid on the bottom. That's the first one I've ever worked on that had a fuel solenoid. And I've got to do some studying on what the heck you do with the fuel solenoid. Because I got a feeling that this thing has to have power to it in order for it to work.
So for the next 4 hours, between running wire, trying to figure out how I'm going to get the thing powered up, and going back through 2 different blueprints, 2 sets of wiring diagrams, and a whole lot of internet research, I figured out there's a basic problem.
Well, I got it to run today, but that little thing down there at the bottom, that little black box, is making it so that the carburetor doesn't work. It's a fuel solenoid. On the mower that I got rid of, one of the things that drove me nuts about it was the darn thing would dump gas into the engine block. It had a Briggs and Stratton engine in it. And no matter what I did, I could rebuild the carburetor as many times as I wanted. It would always overrun the float, fill the manifold, and fill the engine block full of gasoline. So I just put a couple of cups of gas in it, and that was enough to mow this little postage stamp yard, and it was all done. Well, Briggs and Stratton came up with a better idea. Rather than fixing the float bowl on the carburetor so that it worked like every other float bowl in the world, they decided they would put a solenoid valve on there so that unless the engine is running, that little solenoid valve shuts off the fuel flow to the carburetor. Seems like it shuts off the fuel flow to the carburetor all the time. It's a major problem. After I finally figured out what was going on, got the sheared flywheel key taken care of, then did a little research and found out this solenoid valve's problem. So tomorrow, I'm going to take the darn thing off, clean it up, make it work. Don't know exactly how yet, but I'm going to figure out something.
If you have any suggestions for a new video, questions about today's video, or any of the other videos on the channel, just drop a note in the comments. You know I read them all. Thanks for watching.